Boker Tov. Today's daf yomi is Kesubos daf Nunalef Kesubos 51. We're going to start on the top of 51a, 2 lines from the top. The Gemara says, "Hahu yasom v'yasoma." There was a boy orphan and a girl orphan. Also, Kami de Rava, who came to Rava, and basically the incident was that as Rashi explains it, that their money was in the hands of an executor, and the boy was being responsible. He inherited the estate, and the girl was being supported by the estate. But the law is that we've seen until now that the girl is only supported from the real estate, but not from the movable objects. So they came to Rava because there wasn't enough money from the real estate to support the girl. So Amru Rava said, he told the executor, give the orphan boy more money than you think he needs, and that way he can give the extra to the girl, to his sister. And so she'll be supported as well. So Amru Rabbanan or Rava, so the Rabbanan who were there said to Rava, but you're the one who said that the girl is supported from the real estate and not from the movable objects. Whether it's for ongoing support, whether it's to pay off the ksuba, or parnasa, or whether it's for her dowry. So why would you say that she can be supported from the metalton here, from the movables? So Amar so Rava responded, it's a loophole, because if the brother wanted to hire a woman to attend to some of his domestic requirements, we would have given him extra money. So for sure in this case he has his sister, so she'll be able to do some of the domestics work, and also she's his sister, he also wants to support her. The rabbis taught Rabbanan, says the Brisa, nechasim that have an achrayos on them, it's like a guarantee. We're talking here about real property, real estate. Or whether it's nechasim that don't have achrayos, meaning to say movable objects. Motziin l'mazon isha u'banos. So Rebbe says we can use either it's real estate or movables. We can use that money to pay for supporting a woman and her children, meaning to say the woman and her children can be supported even from movable objects. That's the position of Rebbe, whereas Reb Shimon ben Elazar taught that if it's real property, motziin levanos min abanim, then we for real property we can take money from the estate that the sons inherited to support the daughters. And if, let's say, the older girls got it first, we could take money from them to support the younger girls. And if the older brothers seized it before the younger brothers, we can take money from there, from the real property, to support everybody. And if there are, and also for the sons from the daughters, if the older sister sees the money before the younger brother, we say, no, the younger brother inherits it, and the girl gets supported, but the property is owned by the younger brother. But that's only where it's been a chasim merubin. That's only where there's a lot of money. However, but we don't take it from the boys. We don't take it for the boys from the girls if there's not a lot of money, because Rashi explains, if there's not enough money to support the girls and the boys until they get older, then the rabbis say that the girls will get the money and the boys have to go begging on the doors, because it's more disrespectful to have the girls go begging. But then, says Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, let's say it's nechasim she'ein lo nachayos. Let's say we're talking about money that is not real estate, but movable. So let's say we're talking about movable objects. So under those circumstances where it's movable objects, motziin lebanim min abanim, then we take from the boys to redistribute to all the boys so that everybody gets the movable objects. U'abanos min abanos, and We distributed it equally amongst the girls. But if it's movable objects, we don't collect it from the for the girls from the boys. Meaning, say the girls are only supported by the real estate, not by the movable objects. And and even though generally speaking, we say the law is like Rebbe, that we support the girls whether it's from real estate or if it's from movables. Here in this circumstance, it says the Talmud, here the law is like Rav Shimon ben Elazar, the Amar, who says we don't support the girls from movables. The Amar Rabbi Holchasa Mikar Kai Rabbi says the law is from the real estate, they're supported, and not from the movables. Bein l'ksuba, whether it's to pay off the woman's ksuba, bein l'mizonai, whether it's to support the girls and the widow, or bein l'parnasa, whether it's to provide for a dowry. But even though that's the conclusion of the Gemara, already from the time of the Gaonim, this matter was changed, and we said, and the halacha became that that's not the case. That we pay off these objects even from the movables. I mean, we pay off these. We support the girls and the widow even from the movables. And in fact, I'll read to you from the back of the Mesifta Shas from the Aliba de Hilchasa. Now, according to the halacha, it says, and this is what they write: Midina Gemara, from the law of the Gemara, ein ksuba nigves al min karka. From the law of the Gemara, the ksuba is only collected from the real estate. V'tiknu hagaonim. So the Gaonim instituted, and it's like the 7th to the 10th century, became instituted, shetigav ha'af mimetaltalin, that you could collect to support the ksuva, and also all of the Tanai ksuva, all the stipulations of the ksuba, you support it from movables. And their source for this is from the Rambam, Hilchos Ishus, and also the Shulchan Aruch. And so then they go on, but that's the basic idea, that today we don't draw this distinction, and we can collect to pay off these stipulations of the ksuba or the support for the girls, even from the movables. Now we're on to the next Mishnah. The Mishnah says, we're talking about the stipulations, the expectations of a standard ksuba in every marriage. So, but let's say lo kasav wa ksuba. Let's say the husband didn't write her a ksuba. We know that there's a ksuba, that every marriage has to have a ksuba, whether it's biblical or rabbinic, is a debate earlier in the Talmud. But let's say he didn't write her a ksuba. So then besula, if she was a virgin, govim masayim. Then it doesn't matter if the husband wrote her a ksuba, she still collects 200. Or the widow would collect 100. Neishahu Tanai Bezin, because that's a stipulation of the court that every marriage has a ksuba. If it's a besula, if it's a virgin, she gets a 200 zuz upon death or divorce, and a widow, she would get 100. So as he says, let's say, you know what? I don't want to write you a ksuba of 200. I'm going to give you this field. This field's only worth 100. So let's say he wrote that. Or if he decided not to guarantee the ksuba, he didn't write, all my property is guaranteeing your ksuba. Chayev, it's still nevertheless that he's responsible to make that payment. Shutanai bezdin, because this is a stipulation of the court. Lo kasav im tishtabai apir kinech. So part of the responsibilities of the ksuba was to redeem her from captivity. The husband promises to redeem her. Let's say he didn't write her in the ksuba, if you'll be captured, I'll redeem you into and I'll bring you back as my wife. Or or if he was married to a Kohen, in which case if she's captured, he's not allowed to remarry her or to return with her. He promises, I'll bring you back to your country. Let's say he didn't write that in. Chayav, and under these circumstances, he's still obligated to redeem her. Shutanai bezin, because this is a stipulation of the court. It's a stipulation of the court. So, Nishbase, when she's captured, Chayav leftos, it's obligated to redeem her. Vim Amar, and if he said, Hare Gita Uksuvasa, let's say he says to her, this is your get, this is your divorce, and this is your kasuba. meaning to say, I'm not redeeming you. I'm divorcing you when you're captured. I'm going to give you the ksuba, tifta esatzma, and you have to redeem yourself. Eino Rashai, he's not going to be allowed to do that. He's not allowed to do that because he has to redeem her. He can't get out of it at that point by saying, I'm just divorcing you because it's cheaper. Let's say she became sick, chayav or raposa, then he's obligated to heal her. And Amar, but on this, under the cases where she's ill, he's allowed to say, Aregita ksuvasa tirapes atzma. If he says to her, this is your get and your ksuba, but now you heal yourself, then he would be rashai, then he would be permitted. We see but even though this is allowed, he's allowed to do that with respect to medical expenses. The Rishonim already severely criticized, like the Rambam severely criticized the person who takes this approach. But the reason why it's allowed is because the redemption is a one-time fee, whereas the medical expenses could be ongoing. And even when you go to the doctor, you pay the bill that day, but unfortunately, you can have another bill the next month, and the next month, the next month. So since there's no real limit to it, for this reason, it is different in the case of the redemption. So it says the Gemara, our Mishnah, which says that the Tanai Ksuba, that the stipulations of the Ksuba are included money. Who is our Mishnah like? It must be Rabbi Meir here. Our Mishnah, which says that the stipulations of the Ksuba are assumed and included, must be like Rabbi Meir. Because what does Rabbi Meir say? He says, Ko apoches lebesulam in masayim, Rabbi Meir says if you try to limit the ksuba and give less than 200 for a virgin or less than 100 for a widow, that's called lewd behavior because you can just easily terminate the relationship. And so that's Rabbi Meir's position. But Rabbi Yehuda's other position, the Rabbi Yehuda, who's normally the bar plukta of Rabbi Meir, Rashi tells us on a base here, but Rabbi Yehuda says, because Rabbi Yehuda says if he wants, so let's say Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda says if he wants, he could write her a ksuva of 200 for a virgin, and she could write back a receipt that she received. She could write back a receipt that she's received 100. But for a widow, she could write a receipt of 100, and she could return a receipt of he can write her that I gave you, that I owe you 100, and she could write back that I received 50. Meaning to say that a person is able to the woman is able to waive the rights and take less of a ksuba. So this contradicts our Mishnah, which says that the stipulation of the court is that the ksuba has to be 200 for a virgin and 100 for a widow. So we see for sure that our ksuba is, that our Mishnah is inconsistent with Rabbi Yehuda's position and follows Rabbi Meir's. So, but the Gemara says, but the problem with that is Ema Seifa. What's the next clause in the Mishnah? The next line of the Mishnah says, Kesubos shavem maneh tachas masayim zuz. Let's say he writes to her a field of Kesubos shavem maneh tachas masayim zuz. Let's say he writes to her a field that's worth 100 in place of 200 zuz. Meaning to say, the next line says he writes to her, I'm going to give you this field instead of the 200, the low cost of what? Or if he doesn't write to her in the ksuva, kol nechasim de isli achrayim ksuva. If he doesn't write to her, all the property that I have are guaranteed for your ksuva. Chayev, he still nevertheless is making all this property achrayas to ksuva shu tenai bezdin. Because this is a stipulation of the court that all his property is guaranteed to the ksuva. But that only follows, actually, says the Gemara, the position of Rabbi Yehuda. Also, Rabbi Yehuda, this only follows the position of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that that every contract, it's assumed to be a guarantee, and if you don't have the guarantee in there, it's a mistake of the scribe. He says achrayos talos sofarhu. Rabbi Yehuda is in the position that if you don't include it, the achrayos, the guarantee in the contract, is just a mistake of the scribe. Di Rabbi Meir ha'amar achrayos lab talos sofarhu. Meir says, no, it's not necessarily the case. He says, achrayos, this guarantee clause is not a mistake described in Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah in Baba Metzia, Matzah Shtarikov, let's say you found a note that says, let's say Reuven or Shimon, let's say $1 million. Let's say you found this note. If there's the guarantee in the note, well, yachzir, then you're not allowed to return it. Then you can't return it to Shimon, even if Reuven admits that indeed he took out that note, because it has. Since it has the guarantee written in it, then Shimon can go and collect money from somebody who Reuven sold his property to after he borrowed the money, and that could be like a sort of fraud that they would be doing. But if there's no guarantee in it, then Rabbi Meir says nechasim yachzir. Then if there's no guarantee, then you can return it. Because then the court can't collect it. So we see Rabbi Meir says we can't assume that the guarantee is written in. We don't assume it's a mistake of the scribe. That's the position of Rabbi Meir, where the Chacham say echad zeh ve'echad zeh. Well, yachzir, Chacham say echad zeh ve'echad zeh lo yachzir shebeis din nifraim. The Chacham say either way, you're not allowed to return it, because the court is able to go in and collect it. Because the Chachamim, who Rashi tells us here is Rabbi Yehuda, are of the position that even though the guarantee is not written in, the guarantee is included. So therefore, we have to say that the Reisha is Rabbi Meir, the first clause of our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, who says a stipulation of the court is assumed in the Ksuba, and the Seifa is Rabbi Yehuda, who says that we assume that the Achrayos, the guarantee, is written in. If you want to say actually the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, then maybe Rabbi Meir says by a contract we don't assume the guarantee is written in, but by a ksuba we do. We can't say that. We don't say that Rabbi Meir says that by a ksuba it's guaranteed, but where by a regular contract it's not, because we have a brisa that proves that. Because Vatanya we learned there are five types of collectibles that are only collected from the free and clear property, and we don't go into the property where there's a lien on it to collect. We don't say that there's a lien to collect it from property that was sold. Ve'elu hein, these are the ones peros v'shevach peros. This refers to fruits and the improvements that you made in the land, and this refers to a case where we learned about this in first chapter in Bama Metzia, that with respect to Rashi tells us the scenario. Somebody steals a field from his friend. So Reuven stole Shimon's field, and then he sold it to Levi. And then Levi improves the property. And so now Reuven had stolen Shimon's friend, and then stolen Shimon's field. Then he sold it to Levi, and Levi improved it. But now Shimon comes back, and Shimon says, I'm taking my field back from Levi. And he gets it back with all the improvements that Levi did. Levi put in a whole a lot of work into that field. So when he gets it back, so we say under there, when he gets his field back, he's going to get it back with the peros and the shevach peros. But when he goes back, but now when Levi goes back to Reuven and he says to him, you have to give me back the money I had to give, the peros and the shevach peros. I lost all my fruit and I lost the shevach peros when I returned it to Shimon. He only collects it from Reuven, from the free and clear, but not from the assets that were already sold, not from the ones that there's a lien on them, because those assets are not fixed, so you can't make that sale from the beginning. So that's peros and shevach peros. And also somebody who accepts upon himself to support his wife's son or his daughter's his wife's daughter. Viget chov, or a note she'im bo achrayos, which does not have a guarantee in it. Uksuvas isha she'im bo achrayos, and uksuva of an isha that can only be collected from the free and clear if it was not written in. the guarantee. So we see from here, Man Shamaslay the Amar Achrayos Lav So for who? That's Rabbi Meir. This position that says if the guarantee is not written in, like the note, it's not assumed. And you see that he includes a ksuba in this. Vikatani ksubas isha. So the Gemara says, okay, we see from here, Rabbi Meir doesn't distinguish between a contract and a ksuba. And we don't assume the guarantee is written in. So the Gemara says, Ibayis Ema Rabbi Yehuda, Ibayis Ema Rabbi Meir, Ibayis Ema Rabbi Yehuda. Well, we can say that the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Ibayis Ema Rabbi Yehuda. How so? How can we say it's Rabbi Yehuda? Remember, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda say we assume the guarantee is written in, but you cannot. Rabbi Yehuda says that she can waive the rights to her contract, to her amount of her ksuba, whereas our Mishnah says you can't, that it's a minimum of 200. So the Gemara says, well, there's a distinction. Hasam kasavay is kabalti. Where does Rabbi Yehuda say she could take less? If she explicitly waives it, but hachal kasavay is kabalti. She didn't explicitly waive it over here. Ibai is same Rabbi Meir, or alternatively it's Rabbi Meir, That what does Rabbi Meir mean when he says that what does Rabbi Meir mean when he says that? Remember, what's the contradiction? Rabbi Meir says it's the stipulation of the ksuba, but Rabbi Meir says in general we don't assume you don't say that there's a achrayas. So that how does Rabbi Meir say that achrayas is not a mistake of the scribe if it's not written in, and therefore you can't collect it from the properties that have a lien on them? What does it mean when it says in the conclusion of the Mishnah that even though the achrayos are not written in, he's chayev? He says he only means it to pay from the free and clear property. Okay, so now we have a new topic, but back to our Mishnah that let's say he didn't write in the document that he was going to redeem her from captivity. He still has to redeem her. Amar Avodah Shmuel, also Shmuel's father taught, Eishes Yisrael Shenansa, even if it was a regular Jewish woman married to an Israelite who was assaulted, Asur Bala, she's not allowed to go back to her husband. Because we suspect that maybe at the beginning she was assaulted, but in the end, as horrific as it sounds, we're saying that maybe at the end she decided that she actually wanted to partake in it. And so therefore, the father of Shmuel says she can't return to her husband because it was like she was adulterous. So Rav immediately challenges the father of Shmuel. What about the fact that it says in our Mishnah, if you'll be captured, I'll redeem you. And I'll bring you back to be my wife. So clearly, even though she was captured, and we assume she was assaulted, she's allowed to be returned to be the wife. So ishtik. So the father of Shmuel was quiet. So Kar Rav Alei Avodah Shmuel, Rav said about the father of Shmuel, Sarim Atro B'milim V'kaf Yasimu L'fiyam. Says the princes stopped their words, and the spoon they put in their mouth, or a cup, a ladle they put in their mouth, meaning to say he could have easily responded. My Islay Lamemer, what could he have said? Bishvuya Hikilu. That there's a difference between assaulted and captured. Captured is not, we don't have direct knowledge that she was assaulted. We just assume she was assaulted. So therefore, the father of Shmuel was allowing her to return under those circumstances. So Gemara says, according to the father of Shmuel, how does the Torah allow a woman who was assaulted to return to her husband? Because we know that she is allowed. And we know this because the Gemara is going to prove that this is a din of the Torah, that a woman who was assaulted is allowed to return to her husband. The Gemara explains, can go in the Ka'amri Edim No, that's talking about a scenario where the witnesses saw that she was screaming and crying from the beginning to the end. And so therefore, under those circumstances, she's allowed to return to her husband. In this position of the father of Shmuel, and also this position of and also this position that she needs to be screaming from beginning to end in order to allow her to return to her husband. This is a dispute with Rava, because Rava says, even if at the start of the assault she was against her will, but then in the end she expressed a desire for this to continue. Even if she says, let him go, because she says, were not for the fact that he was with me, so Harto, I would hire him, Muteris. We're still going to allow her to return to her husband. My time, we'll say that she got, once she was in the heat of the moment, she became excited, and so, but it wasn't her intent from the beginning, and so therefore we will allow her to return to her husband. And Tanya Kavasi de Rava, from D we have a brace that supports Rava. It says in the verse, "V'hilo nitfasa." It says in the pasuk, if a woman sleeps with a woman, if a man sleeps with a woman, and she was not caught, meaning she did it willingly, so then asura, then she's going to be prohibited to return to her husband. Hanitfasa, this implies that if she was Hanitfasa, that if she was seized, mutera, she's allowed to return to her husband. And there's another category, even though she wasn't seized, mutera, she's permitted to return to her husband. How can we have a case where a woman was not caught and she's allowed to go to her husband? She was not seized and forced. And this refers to a case where she started out being forced. In the end, she changed her mind. She was overcome by temptation, and she, by the heat of the moment, and we still allow her to return to her husband under those circumstances. And here we have another brisa, Tanya idach v'ilo nitfasa asura. If she was not forced, she's prohibited, which implies hanitfasa muteris. If she was forced, she's permitted. V'yesh lacharis, and there's another case, nitfasa asura. Even though she was forced, she's prohibited. V'ezozo, what's this? Isha's Kohen. This is the wife of the Kohen. That the wife of the Kohen, even though she was forced, she's prohibited to return to her husband, because that's categorized as a zonah. So if she was not forced, she's prohibited. If she was forced, she's permitted. And there's another woman that even though she's not forced, she's permitted. What does this refer to? That what's this other category, that a woman that even though she was not forced, she's permitted? That's where she was never really married, that she was a mistaken betrothal from the beginning. And under those circumstances, even even if she has her son riding on her shoulders, but since it was a mistaken betrothal, she could reject the marriage and she could walk on her own. So she was never really married. Rabbi Yehuda, Hani Nashi, says Rabbi Yehuda, these women, the Ganabhe, who robbers steal them, Sharon Govraya. We assume that they didn't want to be with the robbers when the robbers forced them and they're allowed to return to their husbands. Amrle Rabbanu Rabbi Yehuda, but we see them bringing the robbers bread. Gemara says, Machmasira, that's only on account of fear. Gemara says, Geri, but we see that they're shooting the arrows for them. Again, Machmasira. It's on account of fear only. For sure that if the robbers say you could go on your own, but yet these women come back, then they're going to be prohibited. Tan Rabban and the rabbis thought, Shvuye Malchus, let's say women are captured by a king, and then they're like captured, and they can't return to their husbands. But Genuve Listos, but if they're captured by bandits, and then they're not like captured women, and then they would be under those circumstances not allowed. But then we learn the opposite. So the Gemara says, Malchus al Malchus lo kasha. It's not a contradiction when it comes to kings. Haba Malchus Achashverosh, Haba Malchus ben Netzer. It depends if it's a king like Achashverosh, where she won't feel special, and so therefore we're going to allow her to return to her husband. But it's the Malchus ben Netzer. She'll think, I'm going to be the queen, and therefore she'll do it willingly, and she won't be allowed to return to her husband. Listus lo kasha. Robbers are robbers, not a contradiction. Haba ben Netzer, haba wisdom da'ama. It depends if it's the robber like ben Netzer, and so therefore a robber like ben Netzer, she's going to be prohibited because she's going to say, he's going to marry me and I'm going to be like a wife to the king. But of robbers in general, these are lowlives, and so she won't want to be with them. Uben Netzar, so the Gemara asks, Ben Netzar, Asam Karle Melech, Hacha Karle Listim. There is called a king, and here is called a robber. So the Gemara says, yes, Gabi Achashverosh, with respect to Achashverosh, Ben Netzar is a little guy. He's a listim, he's a robber. But with respect to Gabi listim da Alma, but with respect to the robbers in general, he's a melchim. He's going to be considered a king. So we'll stop here. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address them.